Welcome to Outdoors with Roy. Looking for some ways to keep McAllen beautiful? We will show you some ways you can help by getting involved. Coming up on this episode of Outdoors with Roy, Keep McAllen Beautiful is encouraging families to go plogging together to keep our city parks and hike and bike trails clean. We'll show you this latest trend. Also, we have a great DIY for your entire family. You'll make great lifelong memories and call a city park your very own. We will introduce you to a family who works and plays together while helping keep a city park clean. Stay tuned. In the near future, you may get to smell some citrus blossoms at a McAllen park, thanks to some volunteers and a generous donation. We will have the details coming up. Keep McAllen Beautiful has a great idea for the outdoors. It's a Swedish trend called plogging. We recruited some young athletes here at CrossFit Groundbreakers to show us what it's all about.
And now, a workshop of the McAllen City Commission. All workshops are open to the public in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. These workshops allow for detailed staff presentations.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll call this meeting to order. We're going to begin with item number 1, present questions to staff relating to today's regular meeting agenda. Are there any questions for today?
No questions, Mayor.
No questions.
There being none, we'll go to item number 2, point in time presentation.
Julia?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. With me today are two very special guests, Mr. Armando Garza and Mr. Steven de la Garza. They work for the Hidalgo County's Urban County Program, which is our same counterpart as our Community Development Department. So they are also a recipient of HUD funds. So today we're going to be doing a presentation on point in time. As a HUD recipient, particularly for our ESG program, we are federally mandated to conduct an annual count of our homeless population. This point-in-time count is an annual count of people experiencing homelessness on a single night in the last 10 days of January. This count outlines the importance of collecting, reporting, and analyzing high-quality data on homelessness and leveraging a variety of data sets to plan, target, and scale the needed housing and service interventions. On a federal level, HUD uses, I forgot to mention, this is a nationwide effort. It will be on the 23rd of January 2025. On a federal level, HUD uses this information of the point-in-time count that is collected among other data sources for this annual homeless assessment report that is reported to Congress the December of every year, which helps us advocate in keeping funds, for our programs. Our programs, although they've been in existence for about 50 years or so, do usually run the risk of getting cut. So we prepare this assessment or HUD prepares this assessment for them. And it helps also explain the number of people experiencing homelessness and the efforts that HUD, the effectiveness of our programs, right, that has been made to decrease those numbers. On a local level, it is mainly used to raise awareness and advocate for local and federal funding. Not only will it help us appropriately address our local needs, but it will help measure our progress and what we've been doing to decrease homelessness. It'll help us identify any gaps in services that we currently have in our system by understanding the characteristics and the trends of homelessness. So HUD has it separated into several categories. A comprehensive count will consist of the following: ending veteran homelessness, reducing chronic homelessness, reducing family homelessness, and reducing the length of homelessness. So HUD's main initiative is to reduce homelessness, but particularly veteran homelessness. Here within the county, when we conduct our count, we don't have any preferences. We count everybody and we submit our numbers on that same night. Who counts? So we do account for both sheltered and unsheltered homeless. We do recruit volunteers. We do go out and canvass the entire county. We divide it by quadrants. The county takes the lead, and Mr. De La Garza will explain it in just a few moments. But we do also count the people that are residing in the homeless shelters, which both of the homeless shelters that we have, a domestic violence shelter and a 24-hour shelter, are within the city limits of the city of McAllen. So just a quick note. We do also go to parks, so we have to collaborate with many communities and many departments in order to plan this initiative. Although it takes place in January, it does take months for us to prepare. So, like I said, the county does take the lead, and Mr. De La Garza will touch on that in just a few moments. Where exactly do we count? So, for unsheltered individuals, we can find them anywhere near the expressways and parks, usually near facilities, public places such as bus stations, libraries, anywhere where they can use the facilities freely. But there are also other areas in which we can find them where are, for example, vacant and abandoned homes or buildings, which sometimes pose more of a threat because depending on how the weather is on those days, there have been instances where it's not safe, for them to live in those situations. So this is more or less what we call known locations. And what do we do to plan a successful count? So we first establish a headquarters, which Mr. De La Garza will explain in just a few moments. We recruit volunteers, but what we start doing now is not only do we start recruiting volunteers and provide awareness, but we also start requesting, or not necessarily requested, but recruiting donations as well. Because what happens with this survey, it's a survey that we do with our homeless population, and oftentimes the questions, in my opinion, are a little intrusive with the types of questions that they ask. So you're already approaching a person that is experiencing a crisis, right? And so it's not often that they open up and give you all the information that we need in order to properly address the gaps, right? So what happens is we assemble incentive bags, and we get donations from agencies, from restaurants, from stores, and we give them this bag full of incentives. And because they're happy to receive something, then they start answering our questions. And it is a lengthy survey, and it's a little, like I mentioned, a little intrusive. So we also have to train our volunteers, so that takes time. The more volunteers we have, the better we are able to canvass our entire community, not just our city, but our entire county. the more accurate counts that we have, it'll open up doors to other funding opportunities that we otherwise wouldn't have, and it'll help our nonprofits as well, our subrecipients, to have that as well. So we usually, go out on that entire day. It's supposed to be meant to be a 24-hour event, but we don't do 24 hours. The most we've gone up to 6, 7, maybe at the latest, 7 p.m. But we do start fairly early. And so these are some of the items, we get socks, ponchos, hygiene kits, dog foods, and, we do sometimes receive gift cards, and with those gift cards, we will ourselves go out and buy items. So this is just another thing, it's the same thing of the donations that we ask for. And then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. De La Garza.
So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Steve De La Garza with Hidalgo County. In an effort to get a comprehensive homeless count, the county utilizes its more than 40 volunteers, breaking them into teams of 2 to 4 individuals, and then assigning them each to a specific city, ensuring that all Hidalgo County cities are included. Prior to the point in time, calls are made to the county sheriff's office and to all city police offices to get an idea of where our homeless populations can be found in their jurisdictions. Also, the volunteer teams are provided with the previous year's city point in time maps that provides established homeless sites to assist them with their efforts. On the day of the point in time, the volunteer teams utilize the Texas Homeless Network's phone application called Counting Us to conduct the surveys. And what you see up on the screen is last year's, January 2024's efforts in the city of McAllen. And the blues are observational surveys, and the reds are actual one-on-one surveys. Our volunteers are trained that if they don't feel comfortable, or if they get denied a survey interview, that they can take observational surveys, and that's what the blues are. And again, the reds are the ones they did in person. So then the volunteers will also canvass the city multiple times throughout the day to ensure that they get the most up-to-date data to conduct the surveys and providing the donations that are given to them to the individuals who are receiving the survey. At the end of the day, all surveys taken are uploaded to the point-in-time command center for processing. The Texas Homeless Network will then release the survey results in a data reporting format about every April. And at this time, I would like to recognize the point-in-time volunteer organizations that make the point-in-time as comprehensive as possible. Our partners include the cities of McAllen, Edinburgh, Mission, and FAR, the Hidalgo County Community Service Agency, Endeavors, Salvation Army, Women Together, Catholic Charities, and the Food Bank.
So this is just a small, presentation based on what we go through on an annual basis. We've been doing this for myself for over 10 years. Mr. Steve has been doing it for the past 3 to 4 years. But this past 2 years, he's had to take the lead in doing so for the entire county. So we've been working on ways to kind of streamline the process and make it a little bit more efficient, and we're just here to provide awareness. And these are, some pictures of this year's count. It happened in January as well. Just so that I failed to mention that the weather has a lot to do with our count. It does have, it impacts how much our count will be, because if it's wet and cold, they're seeking shelter somewhere. We might not be able to find them. So we try to keep our numbers as accurate as possible, and which is why we do go out and canvass the community several times. And we will know if we've already assessed them or not, because most of the times they still carry their incentive bags. So it serves several purposes as well. It'll help us know, or we'll ask them, did somebody come by? And they're pretty, they're pretty good about giving us that information. But it's the initial contact with them that kind of, is a little bit more difficult, right? Challenging, yes.
So according to the data from last year, we have 117 homeless people in McAllen?
The reason for that, sir, is because the 2 homeless shelters, remember I mentioned it was sheltered and unsheltered counts? Mm-hmm. So the 2 homeless shelters are currently within the city of McAllen.
There's 117 altogether?
Altogether.
Now, last year, how was the weather?
The weather was nice.
So it was a better count because
Yes.
they were out there and stuff like that.
But the
Okay.
year before that, we had 353.
2 years ago?
Yes, but
Like the county.
the 353
Oh, county,
was,
countywide.
yes, the countywide. I don't have McAllen.
352?
353.
353.
And last year, we had a total, altogether, we had a total of 189
In the county.
in the county.
189.
What happens to these figures? Where does it go to, and what do we, what do we expect
So this.
from that accurate count?
The point-in-time count, along with that, they do another initiative called the Housing Inventory Count. Those two combined become the annual homeless assessment report that is reported to Congress. And it's usually to advocate so that we can continue to keep our funds, alive.
That's exactly the point, Commissioner, and this was included for the Commission's awareness. I don't think it's something that we've talked about in quite some time. This is an activity that the county and the Grants Department participates in yearly. But the data is sent back to Washington, D.C. and used to advocate for money coming back through HUD programs. So it's important data that's collected, and it's to advocate for dollars to come back to this community to help us.
So the data's gone through HUD, it's mandated, as I understand. I guess to kind of educate me a little bit more and excuse my ignorance, what are some of the level, local level programs that are being used to assess homeless veterans or to mitigate the amount of repeated homelessness of other individuals?
So first, in order to treat homelessness, we need to identify the root of their homelessness, right? So it helps us accurately find out why they're currently living on the street. Is it because they don't have access to medication? Is it because they went through a divorce and they lost their house? Is it because they have mental health issues? So this survey helps us kind of make that determination. And then at that point in time, we will know what types of services we have and where we're lacking in services and what we need in order to streamline or to bridge those gaps that are currently existing so that we can provide them with the proper services. So for example, for veteran homelessness, we do have an organization, as Mr. De La Garza mentioned, called Endeavors. They particularly, tailor to providing services not only just to homeless veterans, but veterans themselves. So they do provide housing vouchers for them in order to provide, a safe, inhabitable environment, to just keep them out of living in areas that are not meant for human habitation. And in our sense, we do have our emergency solutions program, which both the county and ourselves get. We get a much smaller allocation. They get a fairly large allocation, but it helps with rental assistance for homeless individuals to bring them out of the streets. But it also helps those that are at risk of homelessness to prevent them from becoming homeless as well.
Are there programs is there funding associated with some of those programs that if there's a mental illness or mental health, that they're kind of plugged in to the local mental health?
We can use our funding for some of that, but it's particularly to kind of get them out of homelessness.
So just get them underneath the roof, basically?
Right,
Okay.
yes. But also to connect them to other social services.
Okay. Thank you.
So if does anybody have any more questions? We'd be happy to
Well,
entertain any questions.
it's, the goal should be to not have homeless,
Right.
okay? So, seeing the number from 300 to go to 180 and maybe see where we're at this year, but if we can do whatever we can, and the cities here and the counties here also, and to try to have programs and to have it available for us to reach out for those that are at times getting close to being homeless. That's when really you should try to catch them, because it does happen. I mean, health reasons and divorces and everything else, life hits them. So if we could somehow publicize that, where do they call, where can they go to, right before it gets to not right before, but before it gets to this situation of homelessness. Mm-hmm. just, we need to try to have these programs available.
I'm curious, out of the 117 that were identified as being homeless in McAllen, how many of those were attributed to either transitional or situational circumstances that brought them to that point? Kind of referring to the divorce, unemployment, eviction. Do we have any data just off the top of your head?
We do have a report that has, that's more broken down. I'd be happy to provide that.
Okay.
Later, but yes, it does, it says how many are head of household, how many are women, how many are single parents with children, and it's completely broken down, so, so it helps.
Do you have, how many are in the downtown area?
They fluctuate. Also, we need to keep in mind that we are a border town, so a lot of our homelessness is also transitory. Another thing to note is that our homeless shelters will only allow you to stay for 45 days. So what happens is we have a population that will stay here in, let's say, Salvation Army. They exhaust their 45 days, then they'll go to Loaves and Fishes in Harlingen, exhaust their 45 days over there, and then they'll go to those in On Center in Brownsville, and so on and so forth. Those are what we call our chronic homeless persons. But a lot of them are transitory too. Like they just are passing by.
I've been seeing less though in the downtown area.
We're trying to increase our efforts for street outreach, so as long as we're able to identify them and provide them with the street outreach that they can and connect them to services, then, it's just, we also need to find out what obstacles they're experiencing, because sometimes they're living out on the street, they don't have IDs or they don't have their birth certificates, and you need one or the other to obtain services, so that's where we come in as well.
Do we have any signs or anything where there'll be a number where they can reach?
When we go
Or
through this count, we usually give them a flyer with information, but we'll be happy to create some for you guys so that in the event that you come across somebody that may need assistance, you can just refer them to us.
Yeah, maybe some kind of, I can put it in my store, on the window or whatever, or the other businesses try to help them out, because a lot of them don't. Well, I've seen some that really don't even know how to read and things like that. But they're passing every day to the store, but maybe we have a little, sign or pamphlet or something that we can give them.
We'll be happy to provide one.
Any other questions?
No question.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything you do.
So the next item is a discussion on the alley capital project update.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, City Manager. Thank you for allowing us to present today. We have a quick housekeeping item. We just wanted to update you on the progress we've made on alleys, make sure that we're still in the right direction, and get any feedback before we kick that off. There are 2 items today for your consideration on construction, and so that's why we're bringing this forward. And I'll kind of just give you the update. So the reason we're coming forward today is we had the alley paving project. It was from stimulus money that was $3.2 million identified. One thing to note that this is a one-time slug of money that was appropriated, and so this is not really a reoccurring surplus of money to do additional alleys, and so that is one reason we brought it forward. The concern was that we're leaving gaps throughout the city, and we're trying to address the worst case alleys. And so at the beginning, we have over 141 miles of alleys. We've identified about 56 miles of caliche and milled alleys out of the 141 miles. And we previously presented this to our Public Works Department. We're just kind of putting the presentation back. When we look at those alleys, we had sat down with you at a previous workshop and discussed how much it would cost to pave all those alleys. When you tally that all up behind me, That's about $51 million worth of alleys. And that's from the previous presentation when I ran it with our new numbers. We're at about $60 million worth of alleys actually in today's prices. When we go to the next page, we had originally budgeted $3.6 million. We went out for professional services to get those alleys designed. That came out to $287,625 approximately, which is about 9% of the overall budget. That left about $3.2 million in alleys, and that's about 5.5 miles. That would be, when we do all three sections, that's how much we would pay. When we looked at identifying alleys, and we sent this out on the previous workshop, and we gave you the list of alleys, we had a criteria. We worked with our Public Works Department, and the criteria we used was, one, what was the surface condition? It's a little subjective, but Elvira sent her staff out, and they drove these alleys. They have familiarity with the alleys, and so they rated them from poor, fair, and good. We had pavement surface, which we did have some dirt, but they're probably caliche that have dirt on top of them. But nonetheless, they had more dirt than caliche. That was poor. Fair was caliche, and good was millings. We had driveway connections. We felt this was important because people were actually using the alley to get into their house. And so there was either yes or no, and they got a scoring for that. And then, was the alley being used as a garbage route, or was it front service? And so you got points based if the trash truck was going in your alley or not. After we did that, our objective was to come up with alleys based on the direction we got from Commission, was to kind of spread that out, but to address the alleys that the districts that had the least amount of alleys, and then spread the money less to districts that had more alleys already present. I'm gonna have Mario back up to inventory district by mile. Certain districts already have pavement in the alleys, and so those were concentrated less, and the ones that had alleys were concentrated more. We have two agenda items today to have a contractor go through and start paving those alleys that are in those maps. And so we open it up for any questions. This is just more of a housekeeping item, and have a conversation and see if we're still in the right direction.
The rehab sections A, B, and I guess C, these are all the identified alleys that comprise, I guess, what would be the unpaved ones, or is these the ones that y'all gonna work on? What is it?
These are the ones that we're gonna work on.
Okay, these are the ones you're gonna work on. And this is all for the current year cycle, or this is over how long?
So this is a one-time slug of money. These three maps is all we would pave. So
No, I know, but is that, to pave all these for that 3.2 would take 12 months, 24 months, 36 months?
I don't know what the construction, my agenda item will tell me how.
Like, are they done one by one, or are you able to do simultaneous ones? Because I could see some are very short, right? So, and some are a little bit longer. So
You're
are
talking
y'all
about
doing-
mobilization onto each section that's out here. Am I under?
Yeah, correct. Like how, I guess how what's the time frame to get all these done, right?
So, for instance, I'm gonna go to one of these agenda items, and I'll get the days for construction. $180? So one of them is 180 calendar days,
Just one?
and group one is 100 calendar
Oh,
days.
the group.
Simultaneously?
Well, we haven't, when we kick this off, then we'll have an NTP and see how they want to mobilize. But they'd have to address all those alleys within that time frame.
And then you said it went out for design? This is not, someone had to design these alleys?
So when we're looking at this, we're trying to match, so since one of the important things that we're looking here is driveways, and so when we're trying to match driveways, the drainage in the back of these houses, so if we just went in and let someone start making alleys, they could go higher, they could cause flooding into someone's backyard or their house. And so there is a little bit of complexity.
Yeah.
One, also getting the utilities that are back there. We do, I mean, just to kind of be upfront, there's a lot of utilities that run through these alleys. You know, when this is where the cables run, gas. So all your utilities that run through the alley. So we had to mark those. We do assume that some of that, when we do it with our in-house forces, there are times when we do hit that telephone line because sometimes they're shallow.
Yeah.
There will be some disruptions, but you know, the whole point of designing this is trying to minimize that as much as possible.
Big test.
Yes, sir. I think the issue is dig test will definitely go out there, but some of these telephone companies, what we've seen is they put that telephone line about 2 inches under the caliche or dirt, whatever's out there.
And I don't know if it's possible, just for reference, I like the diagrams, the section A, B, C. They're very detailed maps, and you can kind of see exactly where the stuff lies, right? It's not kind of a Google map with little stars. Is there a way to, I guess all these ones that are going to be done under the 3.2 are in red. Is there a way to put all the unpaved alleys like in a different color so we can see what would still be left out and where it
I
lies?
can get that for you.
All right.
So we have that in our JSO. We can.
Yeah, that'll help.
Just as for reference.
Just so you have a visual of what that looks like.
Correct.
Any other questions?
Eduardo, I think sections A and C are on the agenda for consideration this evening.
That's correct, sir.
Another note that in alleys, but there is an annual fund, but it's smaller. Isn't it like $500,000 or something? Is that just a maintenance? It's not a repaving?
Correct.
So they're
Right.
doing about 200 to 250. The money we use for Cutler will take about 200 and 250, and Elvira allots that for the alleys.
Okay.
It's kind of taken off of that bigger number.
Okay. And that's more of the maintenance
Maintenance.
ones, right?
They'll, finale is caliche and suffered
Yeah.
some tear after a rain or something. They'll go in and re-caliche or try to maintain them as best we can.
I had a question. If the alley is located on one of the blue lines, the drainage ditches, does that count? Or is that something else?
If it's an actual, some of them some are just service roads for the drainage. But if it's looping the alleys, then those should be counted in this list.
Okay, but if it's like just strictly just for sanitation, then it's not counting?
If sanitation's using it, then it will be an alley. What I'm saying is sometimes there's roads that are just for the ditches, the ditch maintenance.
Oh, they're just maintenance, okay, but those don't count?
Those wouldn't be on this list, but if they're used as like loops
Right.
connecting two alleys, then those are added in this.
They are in, okay. I'll visit with you after.
Okay.
Anything else?
Good.
Appreciate it.
All right,
Thank you all.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have time for it.
Next item.
Mayor Pro Tem, that is the last workshop presentation we have. If the commission would consider adjourning or recessing to executive session, we have a few items we can discuss now.
Okay, we'll recess into executive session.
This concludes the workshop of the McAllen City Commission. Workshops are held every second and fourth Monday of the month, convening at 4 p.m. at the McAllen City Commission chamber on the third floor at McAllen City Hall.